This program is part of the Devil's Mark Podcast Network, the official podcast network of Shadow Path Diabolism.
This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast for Friday, September 25th, 2020. And on today's episode, I'm going to be continuing on with my discussion about how to get started in Shadow Path Diabolism. And today we're going to be talking about the goddesses and how the goddesses are viewed a little bit in this episode.
This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the official podcast of Shadow Path Diabolism, your daily dose of Diabolonian philosophy to inspire you on your journey down the crooked shadow path. Here's your host, R.J. Womack, Brother Nero.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Womack, aka Brother Nero, and this is the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the podcast where we promote the religious worship of Satan and demons as a serious faith and way of life, and we try to help our fellow diabolists on their journey down the crooked shadow path. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the goddesses and how they're worshipped and how we regard them in this tradition. Before I get into that, though, I want to tell you that I do apologize for not having an episode up. I got kind of burnt out and I needed to take a break, and I decided to take a break for the holidays because I've been doing this for about 2.5 months, almost 3 months now every day, and I'm just tired and I just wanted to take a break. So I apologize for not having episodes up, but I'm back now and we're going to get started where we left off. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is that in Shadow Path Diabolism, I take the time of the new moon or the dark moon to worship the goddesses. The goddesses that I work with particularly are Freya, Hecate, and Hela. And I have my reasons for working with these goddesses, and this is a fairly recent development. I haven't always worshipped the goddesses or paid particular attention to the demonesses as much as I should, and I felt like Satan was guiding me to do that and make that correction. I don't think he was very pleased with me for not giving the goddesses their rightful due, and I think that he's the one that guided me in my practices to give them the proper respect. So I want to make that clear. One of the reasons I've always kind of stayed away from goddess worship is because Gardnerians in particular have put a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to the goddesses. They project this idea of, first of all, of being man-hating feminist, and I don't particularly like that, obviously, as a man, but it's also because it's not true of ancient paganism. The gods and the goddesses were worshipped equally, and they were respected equally, and the male and feminine aspects of nature were respected equally, and there was not any of this, we're better than you and you're better than us, or any of that kind of competition between the sexes in ancient paganism, at least for the most part. Now, there were a few ceremonies where there was some role reversal, but generally speaking, the goddesses were worshipped and respected equally to the male gods, and there wasn't this ultra-feminism or anti-man sort of attitude. That's a very modern concept. So that's why I always recommend to people that you stay away from neo-paganism, because it's not true to ancient pagan beliefs. And if you're going to worship the goddesses, I highly recommend that you use archaeological evidence and historical evidence to base your practices upon. And what I would say is you should worship the goddesses in any way you see fit. And although I've said this about not being too much into modern feminism and not putting modern concepts of morality on the goddesses, I mean, ultimately, you have to make the choices for yourself, and you're going to do whatever you want to do, and you're going to practice however you want to. But I would highly recommend that you do your research and build your practices based on ancient beliefs and not let the modern concept of goddess worship and neo-paganism affect your practices, because I just think it's detrimental to the practice of ancient paganism. And that's what I think diabolism is. It's a form of ancient paganism. And I think in ancient paganism, we always promote the idea of balance. And if you try to promote one gender over another or one sex over another, and you try to promote this idea of war between the sexes or something like that. You're not really practicing ancient paganism. You're practicing neo-paganism. And that's not what Shadow Path Diabolism is all about. And as far as sources for what to offer to the goddesses, go look up people that do research into the history and the archaeology surrounding and the anthropology surrounding these ancient religions, and use that as your source of information. That's the best way to stay true to ancient pagan beliefs and honor the goddesses the way they've always been honored. Anyway, that's about it for today, guys. Take care. Hope to see you next time. Later.
If you would like to learn more about the Shadow Path Diabolism tradition of occultism, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and support our message, tell a friend, leave us a review, and follow us on social media.